Lee's old district, who was basically the elected official for I don't know how many years, but a couple of decades, right? Thomas Boyle was there how long? The Thomas Boyle family. How long was there?
The family?
The family. How long was the family in charge of legislation in this community?
Well, on an assembly level, or what depends on the levels. You're not even...
Let's cover their bases. Let's say the assembly level.
20.
Wow, 2 decades.
That's right.
2 decades they were sitting in the chair. So that makes this election very important.
Definitely very important.
And we have a couple of candidates that are actually running for that seat. You have, first up, the batter up, Tony Herbert. How do you think about Tony Herbert? What's your feelings on Tony Herbert?
I don't have any particular feelings on Tony Herbert as an individual. I mean, as far as him being one of the running candidates.
As a politician that's going to benefit the community, what's your take?
I think that not only Tony Herbert, but also Lori
Inez, Anisha Wilson, Latrice Walker.
I think it's so, and you can't forget Anthony Jones, so you have to be fair with everyone that's running.
And Anthony, you should have been at the. Why you didn't come to the forum, brother? Okay, next time we'll catch up with you. But yeah, Anthony, go ahead.
So without just addressing specifically Tony Herbert, I think that there's only one actual candidate who truly resides in the community, who has really grown up here, been interactive with the community, and I don't think
so. I only know one person that's been a part of the community that actually lives in the community. That's Latrice Walker. Okay, she's the official, that lives here in the community, has lived here all her life. So then that's what Deidre's referring to. What about Booster? What's your take on Mr. Booster?
So again, I don't have a take on anyone in particularly. As far as issues and all,
as far as her acquiring the seat to actually do something for the community, Brownsville in itself, what's your take as far as her actually getting the resources and actually assisting the residents of Brownsville?
So, I mean, oddly enough, I think that most people that actually are the doers are not the people that are running. But I do believe that the people that are running, being in this legislative position, will they be able to fulfill that legislatively? I think that I can't specifically endorse anyone because I am representing the Brownsville Collective. Do I believe that Lori Boozer will enact legislation? I believe anyone that's there will enact legislation. Will it be legislation that's really coming from the community or being a voice for the community? What we need? That's to be seen. And I think you can kind of tell that now by who's interacting with the community already, who already has a ingrained past of interacting with the community. And the only person I know that really has been interacting with the community throughout the whole time, I would say, is Latrice Walker. I believe Anthony Jones has also interacted with the community on some level, just not on a level where it doesn't even or it has anything to do legislatively. And I believe as well Tony Herbert has been interacting with the community, but that's mainly on reporting what's going on in Brooklyn about the issues that are here. But I don't know if we definitely see that legislative process of getting legislation passed that would be beneficial as well because that takes a lot of communication with people, and that should have already been done.
Well, we've spoken to many people out there about the 55th District. You've seen the last show, you've seen a couple of the candidates, but in this episode, I got 4 candidates and all of their actual issues as they was laid out by a particular group. They brought them out for the actual forum and they said what they had to say at the forum. We're going to go to a couple of those clips right now. Objective opinion. Peace.
This is a 2-part question. 1. What are your plans to encourage developers to invest in this neighborhood, even by providing more construction job training? And the second part is, what are your plans to partner with other organizations to bring job training into the community for a diversity of teams?
One of the things that we have had many different conversations about are apprenticeship programs. But I'm here to tell you that we need free apprenticeship programs, because when we send our young people to these apprenticeship programs, most of the time they can't pass the test in order to qualify. So that's one initiative that I'm going to work on. But in addition to that, there are many government programs that, for instance, like the Excelsior Jobs Program, Jobs Now, the Job Development Authority, and Direct Loan Program, which will provide funding to many businesses locally and also for businesses who are interested in doing business in our community to be able to promote more jobs in our community. So I will make sure that those particular types of programs are continuing to be funding, and we will also be looking for more innovative ways in order to encourage more businesses to move in. MWBEs is also very important because we know that we hire our own. So I will make sure that the MWBE programs and the types of trust funds and revolving loan programs that are existing presently are also continued so that we have the resources, the jobs, and the availability to be able to hire locally.
As the citywide civic engagement chair for the NYCHA, or should I say the NAACP NYCHA branch, one of the things we've already begun and have been doing since this past winter is meeting with the coalition groups that are actually trying to secure these positions that are becoming available in some of the work that's being done in NYCHA. The biggest concern I have also, which wasn't said, is that the unions don't have access to these NYCHA contracts because they've been left out of this particular process. I would like very much to work with the unions in doing that, so that way we can have a solid base of individuals who respect workers who are out there wanting to do the job and wanting to do it properly. But they should also make sure that the NYCHA presidents are included in that process. They should be meeting with them and making sure that they have all information, so that when you have individuals who run band-like houses or Howard houses or stuff like that are way ahead of the game and know exactly what's coming down the pipe so they can get the information out to the individuals in the developments so they can get the jobs before everybody else.
Unions do actually have access to the NYCHA construction pipeline. The problem is that they don't have continual access, meaning NYCHA will train an individual to do a particular job at a development, but they do not give them a career pathway into the construction industry. So that's very different than allowing NYCHA to have a contract with a labor union for the long-term development of individuals in the construction industry. Now, I personally met with the carpenters trade because they've endorsed me in this campaign. So I know for a fact that there are ways and avenues to make sure that they can have that contract with NYCHA, and I'll be willing to advocate for that on behalf of our young men here.
How will you plan to make Rockaway Avenue a social and retail destination for the community to help existing businesses stay and grow and invite new businesses to develop?
Avenue to Belmont Avenue to also Broadway. One of the things that, this is a job interview here, and we're looking at experience, right? So one of the things that I have experience with is utilizing trust funds for commercial district revolving loan programs and how businesses that are located on commercial strips will be able to gain access to be able to get tax credits so that they can have the resources that they need to hire locally. Also, we can do empire zones. Right now, they're saying in the state of New York that they're not allowing any more empire zones. But we can do what we can do in order to extend empire zones and bring also empowerment zones in the federal level to our particular communities. Right now, we have one that exists on Pickett Avenue in East New York. There's also the East New York Industrial Zone. We're going to do what we have to do in order to make sure that businesses there are also being incorporated to some of the businesses that are located along the business strips. We have mattress companies. We can make sure that some of the mattress companies that are located along Rockaway Avenue, as you said, the furniture stores, there's a pipeline to be able to say, this is where it's being created and this is where it's being sold. So that's another thing that I want to make sure to do. Now also, one of the special situations that would happen, the type of connections you have with respect to having elected officials support you is Rob Cornegie is on the Small Business Committee, who is also someone who endorsed me. We've had conversations about that. Congresswoman Yvette Clark is also on the Small Business Committee, and we've also had conversations about that. So the jobs are already being done. At this point in time, we just need to have some buy-in by some of the communities and some of the business owners there. We've had a number of conversations with them. We are creating merchants associations on Belmont Avenue. There was just a Belmont Avenue business survey that was conducted by Community Board 16 that I was a part of. So the business of Brownsville is definitely the business that we will definitely be connected to. So thank you.
Talk about 8 years of experience. Why are we having this conversation today? Why are we not having these zones already structured? Why have they not been put in place so that we won't be sitting here with concerns about how our businesses are going to flourish? One of the things that has to be done, and I know, quite frankly, because I heard Ms. Walker speak about Yvette Clark, who doesn't have this district anymore, who did have it, we still have no industrial structures in Brooklyn or on this side in Brownsville. We still have no power zones. We have none of those things existing at this time. So again, my concern is when we go to Albany, we have to be realistic about how we represent our people. We can't be trying to pull the wool over people's eyes to make it sound good, to get the good sound bite so that we can get the job. Let me tell you straight up. We have issues in this community. They have to be addressed. We have people that need jobs. We have people that need to work. We have businesses that need to be developed. And talking about what we could do should have been done a long time ago doesn't qualify a person to be the representative in this community. There has to be development, sincere development, and money's allocated. We can get those monies, but we need our elected officials to work together to do that.
Hello again, everyone. Also, as an official candidate, the CBEDC has endorsed me, and I have been working with them and partnering with them throughout the year. This is an organization that I am currently working with. One of the things we need to understand when creating business corridors is the purchasing habits of our community, an assessment of that. What does the community want? We can't just allow businesses to come in and build without doing thorough community assessments, and that's been an issue throughout our district. Also, we have a lot of chambers, but one of the things is that new businesses cannot come in and build and cannot have economic development growth because our chambers of commerce, they don't have up-to-date data. They don't know how to interact with our residents. So one of the things that we are currently creating, one of the things that I want to continue with the CBEDC and going into Albany is create an initiative with both private and public sectors to create strong strategic partnerships, because that is my background and that is something that I will help continue and hopefully do go into Albany. Thank you.
Not just Rockaway Avenue, but many of our business corridors here in the community have been suffering, in large part, not just because of the spending habits of the people who live here, but because we don't possess a quality of life that attracts businesses. So a part of what we have to do as a community is make sure that we address our issues of crime, make sure that we are increasing the wage so that we have more disposable income to put into businesses, which will then induce businesses to locate themselves in the community. When the community has no income to spend, a business has no reason to locate here because they can't survive. So it's a revolving door, it's a cycle that we have to address. Empire zones were discontinued at the state level. They were replaced with Startup New York. So again, I would advocate that since we do have the largest concentration of public housing here in the city, that we fight to have those housing developments considered the same as a college campus to provide those Startup New York tax incentives to local businesses to improve hiring from the community, which would then give us more disposable income, which would then feed the cycle of economic development in Rockaway Avenue and everywhere else. Thank you.
Two things I'm going to say. The first one is one thing that we understand is that with government it takes three: city, state, and federal. And there are many different programs that Congresswoman Clark was able to do on a federal level as it relates to bringing more resources to our community. But the issue is we didn't have the type of connectedness that we needed once those federal resources were brought into Washington to bring them up to Albany and bring them down into our communities. So I am going to fill that particular role and make sure that whatever those resources that you're looking for, you find. Secondly, as it relates to empire zones, it's not that it's been shut down. They're just not extending them to any new corridors. But we're going to go up to Albany, we're going to make sure that we do things differently and make sure that we say that our community has been neglected for too long. So there's always room for one more.
How do you plan to encourage private investments in this community to stimulate economic growth, while also ensuring that existing residents and businesses are not marginalized and pushed out?
We need to provide investors with tax incentives that will afford them an opportunity to hire within. That's the first thing we need to do, to draw them in to make sure that they're hiring our talent. We have a lot of talent coming particularly out of our housing developments, and particularly out of the streets that exist here in the 55th Assembly District. Not just Brownsville, but also alongside that of the Bushwick Corridor where Broadway is, where I live at that border for the most part, and see the bodegas and the small restaurants that are there that are having issues that are being set upon by city issues. With that being said, again, to get those investors, we have to make sure to ensure that we have the proper funding in place that they see is viable enough for our community.
I think it's a great idea to a degree, but I think we also want to be careful because what we don't want is a Walmart or we don't want an entity coming into the community with significant private investment, but that is also detrimental to our small businesses here, as well as not paying wages that are livable to people that they might employ in the community. So I think it's a balance. As an elected official, we do have some ability to secure private investments, but again, we also don't want to be beholden to private investors. So I would again focus on taxing the wealthy. I would support increasing the tax on the 1% and making sure that that is our private investment and that that money comes into our communities, and also making sure that we continue to support our local businesses and our small businesses. But I think that the increased tax revenue, taxing banks that have had corporate welfare for decades, is the private investment that we need to be advocating to come into our communities.
I want to be careful about encouraging private investment into our community because that's exactly what happened with that foreclosure crisis. But one thing I will say that I will be committed to is show us small businesses just how government can work for you. How can micro-lending opportunities or other lending and MWBE loan or grant programs can be utilized in order to leverage the type of funding that you need to go and get that type of investment on your own, as opposed to me saying a private investor come into our community and do what we need to do when we can do it already. So that's one of the things that I would definitely remain committed to doing. But another one that I would definitely say that we need to do is to really encourage our local chambers of commerce to look into our community and think about it as something that they would mind coming into. One of the things that we did with the community board, we looked at other different companies and said, why don't you come over to Pickens Avenue? But they said we were having our clothing being sold out on the streets. So they didn't want that. They weren't interested in accepting our culture and our neighborhood in terms of how we shop. So I would be very careful about the private investment, but I will definitely do what I need to do in order to help bolster the small businesses to go and get money on their own.
I think that we are all in sync with as regards to the chambers. Fortunately, I'm endorsed by 16 of them. Having had the experience of working collectively with the African American International Chamber and now the Hispanic American International Chamber, those are the things that we look forward to, the opportunity of actually partnering not only with the Pickens Avenue bid, but also with community partners. You have to make sure that our churches are engaged in the process. We need to be sitting with the pastors in our churches and being in a position to afford them an opportunity to be at the table so we can have the negotiations necessary to get them engaged and get the members of their churches and congregations involved in that process so that they can become our future business owners as well.
Choice for children in this district due to the increase in charter schools. The increase in choice and co-location of schools has created a dichotomy in the quality of education. Question: what will you do to ensure equitable schooling for every child in this community to prepare them for college, careers, and their life ahead of them?
This is a question that I hold dear to me because, again, I am director for youth programming and I am the district director working with many of our principals inside of our schools. And one of the things that we see is there's not enough vocational training and programming in schools. Students are not being prepared for the real world. They're not leaving with the tools that's necessary for them to go out prepared. So we need to create more readiness programs. The only way we could do that is if we fight on the state level for more funding. Also, a lot of our public schools are suffering because charter schools are great. Some parents actually like charter schools, and we can't take away from what they provide to certain parents, but our public schools are also losing out because there is not enough funding on the state level. So we need to go to Albany, and we need to fight to get more resource centers there for not just the students, but the parents as well. More training programs, more programs, but all of this have to be done at Albany to create a bill or look at existing ones to say how can we put more funding into our schools. Another thing is, again, college readiness programs. We don't want to just prepare them to go to college. A lot of our young adults and our young men, they don't want to just go to college programs, but they want to know also that they can leave high school with a job. So if we can get money from the state to put these resources centers in our schools and not send our children all over the district and leave them responsible for their own lives while they're so young, and we need to have direction for them. And by placing this funding in schools, we can do that.
Due to the increase in charter schools, the increase in choice and the co-location of schools has created a dichotomy in the quality of education. What will you do to ensure equitable schooling for every child in this community to prepare them for college, careers, and their life ahead?
Separate is not equal, and that applies to the dichotomy that we see between both public schools and charter schools here in the district. The reality is that charter schools are here. I think we need to acknowledge that, because some parents, they see charter schools as the solution, but charter schools also have different leeway than a public school, so they can retain the best and brightest students, they can remove students from their schools. All of are things that public schools don't necessarily have to deal with. So in order to go to Albany and help improve public school education, we don't have to fight. We need to make sure that the lawsuit that occurred between the Campaign for Fiscal Equity and New York several years ago is that funding that was supposed to come into our districts actually comes into our districts. So a lot of that funding has gone to wealthier school districts, but under that lawsuit, we as a disadvantaged community were supposed to receive a chunk of that funding, and that's what we need to advocate for in Albany. Making sure that that funding goes to providing stronger vocational training, making sure we have after-school programs that are geared specifically to helping improve the quality of life of our young people here. And I think that that's what we need to do to improve school choice for our community.
It's interesting when I hear people talk about Campaign for Fiscal Equity, because as an attorney and as a student, I was a part of that Campaign for Fiscal Equity lawsuit. And what it says is that the state of New York owes our school $7 billion. And to date, they've only given $2 billion. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going up to Albany to cash a check. Hello? And when I do that, how am I going to get that done? But right now, since Campaign for Fiscal Equity has not been adhered to, there's another lawsuit that's called Maestro versus State. And as an attorney first, but also as an assemblywoman, I am going to join in that lawsuit to make sure that the 55th Assembly District gets what it needs and it's on the record. So we're not talking about rhetoric here. I'm going up in here, I'm going to file Elizabeth's briefs, and we're going to do what we need to do to make sure that schools just like PS 178 can produce more attorneys, more doctors, more architects, and just like any other school across the state of New York. So that's me.
Candidates who are here amongst us this evening who are running for district leader.
The 55th Assembly District, also known as District Leader. I just want to tell you a little bit about myself real quick. I'm from Brownsville. I spent 6 years in high school. I wasn't going to graduate, but through the grace of God, I was able to get back on track, and I was able to go to college. I went to 4 different high schools. I'm a member of Christian Cultural Center. I've been going to that church for many years, going to college in Pennsylvania. I've done quite a bit of my life. I've been to Haiti after the earthquake. I organized a program called Puppets for Haiti, where we went down there and we did work with hundreds of children. I've been, quite a bit of places. But this is home. I've even worked for President Obama. I worked for President Obama for several years. I was director of voter registration for the state of North Carolina. I created the strategy where we registered 340,000 voters in one state. I want to be your district leader because I want to represent you. This position is not paid. I don't have a budget. I wouldn't have a staff, but I want to inspire.
Everyone, my name is Barry Cooper. I'm also running for district leader, state committee for the 55th Assembly District. I'm a dean at Eagle Academy. It's an all-boys school at the old 271. We have 6th grade and 12th grade, and the reason why I'm running for district leader is because all the years I've been an educator at Eagle Academy and helping the mothers and the fathers who come in and struggle, I do more than just deal with discipline. I help families find jobs, I help families find housing, and then a voice came to me and said, where is our community at? Where is our leaders at? So I started to do my research. And as I was doing my research, I realized that there was no real leadership for the people in my community. So it sparked a huge interest. And I said, you know what? If I'm making change and I'm building culture within my school, I need to make change and build culture in my community. So I have a personal investment. I'm personally invested for any one of these candidates that win.
Last word. Good evening, I'm Kathleen Daniel, and I am standing up, so this is as good as it gets,
but I am your candidate for female district leader here in the 55th Assembly District. I'm the only one that came out here tonight, but I'm used to that. As a single mother of two, it's not the job I applied for, but it's what I got. And women, we know you do what you can with what you got where you are. And that's what Brownsville and Bed-Stuy and East New York have been doing. I'm the president of the community board, the not the community board, the Community Education Council, that's CEC 16, that's Bedford, Stuyvesant, and Brown, and Ocean Hill. I also founded an organization called Parents for Peace. Many years ago, one Caucasian woman in the Midwest caused a ruckus and we took prayer out of the schools. And since then, everything else has come in except learning. Here in District 23, we have almost 20 schools where the 3rd and 4th graders cannot read on grade level. In District 16 in Bed-Stuy, we have 16 schools, and in East New York, 23. The stats are out. There is no training that we can give them if we're not teaching them how to read. Back in the day, they kept us from doing it. You cannot keep electing one person to every position and think that we're going to change what's happening, Daniel, on September 9th, because we need every voice.
I would like to ask permission from the elders to speak. Mr. Grant, thank you. My name is Daniel Goodin. I'm running in the 55th Assembly District because I've always been here. As a guardian angel, that bodyguard James Baldwin when the kids were being killed in Atlanta in the 80s, it was my opportunity and my pleasure to say that I would always make sure that my community would be safe. Most of the people in this room know me for what I do. It's not about a job, it's about a village. I'm running and I feel president to be running with Patrice Walker because I understand the way that she had did. Not only, she always talked about the young folks, but not only for the young folks, for the grown. So I'm here as a servant of the people. I'm here because I want to see Brownsville do better. See, sometimes, we look at the shiny, I can't wear a suit because trouble sometimes, you have to come the way it is. And as a person that works in the school district, there's so much we need to do. Thank you.
Citizens are able to buy fresh food from the many farmer markets in the neighborhood. But local grocery stores in this community continue to sell subpar produce year-round. Question: what initiative do you plan to encourage bodegas and supermarkets to carry higher quality and a better variety of food?